This is the Dynasty Market Report, where we look at a specific asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, be it a pick or a player, and we track how is it trading in the market so that we can tell what our league mates might think about specific assets. Because when you're playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, it's not as important that you make a call about a player and get it right. It's more important that you're just working within how other people feel about players. So today we are looking at Ladd McConkey, 24-year-old wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, who had a disappointing year. Going into year two, we were drafting him really highly. Really highly. We thought that the second year breakout was coming and that what we saw in his first year, where he was about wide receiver 12 or a back end wide receiver 1, that we would get that or better. And that is not what we got. In points per game in PPR scoring, Ladd McConkey finished the year as wide receiver 30, according to the stats I'm looking at on Fantasy Pros. And when we have a situation like this where we're excited about a player and it doesn't work out the way we think, one of the best things to do is just look at, well, was it their fault? You can look at a player like Quentin Johnston, first round wide receiver on the same team, drafted highly, and then in year one and year two and year three, it's not really working out the way we thought. And you can look and say, well, is it Quentin Johnston's fault? The answer is yeah. One of the knocks against Quentin Johnston in his draft profile was the way he caught the ball and issues with drops. And that's been what we've seen. But with Ladd going into year two, that's not really what we're seeing. We're not really seeing the problem be him, is what I'm saying. He still runs routes really well. There's no issues with drops. He's not really confused about where to go or other things you might see with receivers. He's not really any sort of diva. I think it's a lot of things in year two that happened around him that caused him to take a step backwards. Like the Chargers were missing two very good offensive linemen. And when that happens, your offense can't go. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater both missed huge parts of the year, and they should be coming back. The running game that the Chargers went into the year with did not happen for most of the year. If you remember, they drafted Omarion Hampton in the first round, and they signed Najee Harris to be kind of a bridge between those things. And then Najee Harris blew up his face with fireworks and tore up his leg and missed the entire year, or most of it. And Omarion Hampton missed big chunks of this year. The running game went from two pretty good options to Kimani Vidal, a sixth-round pick from a few years ago who did not make the team out of camp, who then got elevated onto the team and was okay. On top of that, Justin Herbert broke his hand. It's his non-throwing hand, but there's real parts of playing quarterback that require two hands, taking a snap, handoffs, things like that. This offense was hurt and banged up, and I think there's a lot of signs that things should get better going forward. So if we try to predict what is possible for Ladd McConkey and the Chargers offense, I think it looks much better than what we had in 2025. There's a new offensive coordinator coming in. We don't necessarily know who it is yet, but I've seen a lot of track record of Harbaugh hiring good coaches. So I don't really fear what was going to happen with the change there. And if we try to predict what they want this offense to be, I think they want a better O-line in the offseason. Some of that, there's my dog, some of that will happen with injured players returning, like Joe Alt coming back and other players coming back. Keenan Allen leaving this offense and bringing targets that were going to him back to Ladd McConkey. So if we have to predict what is the heart and soul of the 2026 Chargers offense, I think it's a solid run game led by Omarion Hampton. They might bring in someone else or go with Kimani Vidal as a second option. And then I think it's Ladd McConkey as the lead pass catcher with Gadsden and Quentin Johnston as secondary options. And then players like Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith filling more roles and being depth pieces. So what we thought we would get from Ladd McConkey is a solid wide receiver 2. And I think if you are trading for him right now, that's what you should expect. Somewhere between wide receiver 12 and 24 on the year, probably around 16. So if we look at trade values for him, we can get a gauge of, is this someone we should be trying to acquire or someone we should be getting out on? Let's pull up some trade values here. We've got the scoring settings listed on each trade. Let's kind of talk through where we see some. Here, this first one we're just going to skip over because it looks like maybe a cleanup trade or something that happened. We're in a league, this actually happened. Someone sent Ladd and Cam Scatabo for Devin Neal, but you're not going to get that deal in your league. No one realistically is going to give you Ladd and Cam for Devin Neal. But right here, If we're just looking for wide receiver crossovers, Ladd McConkey for Zay Flowers, I personally would prefer Ladd McConkey. We're going to run into similar situations with new offenses, guys that are kind of high target options. Do they move into the alpha main pass option role in their offense? The answer is maybe. I would go with Ladd over Zay Flowers, though. Let's find one that isolates more of Ladd McConkey's value here. Ladd McConkey for Caleb Johnson and Jordan Addison. It would take a specific team for me to be trading away Ladd for these guys. If I'm a deep rebuilding option, Caleb and Jordan Addison could become more valuable, like a good starting running back and a good wide receiver 2, which is what Jordan Addison will probably be in most years. He's around wide receiver 18, 19, 20 to 24. That can end up being more valuable than Ladd McConkey, but there's not really a lot of situations where I'm going to take the Johnson and Addison side. Here's another wide receiver crossover. Chris Olave for Ladd McConkey and a 27 fourth. This one feels like I don't know why we need to add an extra pick. A 27 fourth isn't very much, but these guys are very similar. If I'm ranking wide receivers that we've seen so far, Olave, Ladd, and Zay Flowers, I would say I probably would put the extra pick on the Zay Flowers side here. Like if I'm moving Ladd McConkey, I would want something coming back with Zay Flowers, like a fourth or a third. And then in an Olave for McConkey trade, I don't need the extra pick. I think those guys are a pretty good crossover. Here's one, Ladd McConkey and the 203 to move up to the 102. Am I doing that? If I have the 102, I'm probably not really looking to move for Ladd and the 203 unless I have a follow-up deal where I know I can move the 203. And that's going to be league dependent. I'm not that excited to make the pick at 203, but if I know that I can pair this with something else and get the full kind of keep trade cut value in another deal, then I would be okay with bringing in Ladd there. Here's another wide receiver crossover, Ladd for Roma Dunze and the 412. I'm not sure why we have to add something to Ladd here. I would probably take him over Roma Dunze. I've just seen it work with Ladd. Rome had his own issues with injuries this year and had a hot start and kind of looked pretty good. But if we're just going with players that have looked good and then have had periods of not looking so great, I think we've seen more from Ladd. So I would go with that. Here's one where I would love to make this deal. Luther Burden in the 210 and I get Ladd McConkey back. I don't know what Luther Burden is going to be. I know that we're kind of projecting out where he'll be in this Bears offense next year. But if I can move the 210 in Burden and come away with Ladd McConkey where I think there's more upside, I would do this 100 times over and just take Ladd. Here, if I could take Luther Burden in the 210, get Ladd, and then trade him for the 105. I don't know how many people are giving you the 105 for Burden in the 210, but I would be happy to do that. Let's find a couple other deals that I saw earlier that I wanted to call out. Oh, this one, easily I would take Ladd. Jaden Reed and DeAndre Swift. That one, I feel like most of us are taking Ladd McConkey there. Ladd McConkey and a 28 first for Olave and a second. I don't view their value all that differently. Give me Ladd there. The Ladd side. Maybe if I need to expand this up. Looking for kind of Ladd and more pick swaps. Ladd McConkey. Here's one. This is the one I was looking for. Ladd McConkey for the 110 in 2 seconds this year. If I can move the 110 in 2 seconds, give me Ladd McConkey, because in most situations, it would take a catastrophic year from Ladd McConkey to not be able to get a 27 late first back. So you give a couple late seconds, which really often miss. You're missing out on maybe trading these for someone like Devontae Adams or another veteran. You're kind of missing out on that opportunity to make this deal. Would I rather have Ladd McConkey in the 110 or Devontae Adams? Maybe the 110 and Adams. But if you can't get that, I'm happy to move these late seconds with the 110 to get Ladd, because it would take something so bad. Ladd would have to have such a bad year that in a year from now, we couldn't get a late 27 first back for him. You'd have to be really injured and, I don't know, maybe come out and say a bunch of slurs and go to jail to stop us from getting the 110 in 2027 back for Ladd, or even better. Like here, we're getting the 105 for Ladd in a deal that we saw. We saw that earlier. Ladd McConkey straight up for the 105. So if I can do the 110 in a couple seconds and get Ladd, there's a very good chance. Oh, it's right here. There's a very good chance like you can get more for him in 2027, that you would be buying in on the low end. He has a good year in 2026, and then you could cash out for the same picks in 2027 or better. You're kind of just renting the player with picks if you do that. And that's a move that I really like doing. Sending these picks for Ladd McConkey, knowing that you can get the same picks back in 2027 for any player is a move I like doing for a contending team. That's going to bring us to the end of the Dynasty Market Report for today. If there is a specific player you want to see, let me know in the comments. Right now, while the NFL playoffs are still happening, we are just covering players that have been eliminated. And then we'll keep adding to the list. We're doing one a day, Monday through Friday, and we will hit repeats throughout the offseason. So let me know. If this helps you make a trade, let me know with a like, a comment, a subscribe. I am just one guy in my office. I feel it. I see the notifications. Like they do hit me in the heart. Thank you very much. If you've made it to the end, thank you, and we will see you in the next one.